May 4th, 2019. I asked Nature's Classroom for Panther and Bobbi Bobcat. This picture is Skye and her kittens from Kristine's nightly webcam report. They are in rehab here. This morning I drove to the sanctuary and was held spellbound for a moment. The sky was rose gold, and there was a blanket of mist on the ground for as far as I could see. It looked like a soft, white, billowy comforter. I breathed a sigh of appreciation that every morning, whether spectacularly beautiful like this or not, the volunteers are here, caring for the cats. Today we needed to go help another cat, and it felt good to be able to do it and know that all was well here, like always. Kathryn Stapleton, Tanya Chute and I arrived at Nature's Classroom to pick up their Bobcat, who they said had gone from 16 pounds to 8 pounds in just a few weeks. They tried all afternoon yesterday to catch her to no avail, so we went out to net her. Turns out they don't have a net, much less anyone who knows how to use one. I sent the following letter to Keith, the principal there. Bobbi's Nest Cam is set up here. Of course, that link won't work anymore because this was from 2019. I gave the link to Maria already. I think she really cares about the animals, but is being shut down by the chatty custodian, whose name I can't remember. I've only met him twice and her 3 times, but she clearly should be the one in charge based on her empathy for the animals. Don't worry if you log in and see the camera off or facing the wall. Sometimes the internet skips and it could end up not being on her while we're changing bedding. Our recovery hospital has 2 rooms. There is an injured Bobcat in one other room, and Bobbi is in a room by herself. The only time people come in is to feed and clean, and they are quiet to keep down the stress on the cats. It is climate controlled and peaceful. Our scale says that she weighs 17.4 pounds, and Kathryn noticed that your scale is stored on its side. This can really mess up the scale's ability to weigh correctly, as there are elements inside the scale that have to be rebalanced after every time of storing on its side. Bobbi is pretty skinny, in no way she should be so hungry, so you are right to be alarmed. We also notice that she's only getting Panicure once or twice a year, and that needs to be quarterly, without fail, for 3 straight days. In addition to that, she should be on a monthly regimen of ivermectin. Anyone as fast as Bobbi is sure to catch and eat lizards, which means they frequently will need, in addition to all those dewormers, praziquantel for the flukes and other worms they get from reptiles. Sending out the fecals to a lab will show you much more than you would see in a microscope, and we will be doing that as soon as she leaves us a sample. The good news is that she's young, ravenous, feisty, and it's probably just a heavy parasite load that's taking a toll on her. That can be rectified pretty quickly if that's all it is. We do see cases of wild cats with hyperthyroidism, though, and that would require daily medication. A blood test when the vet comes will tell us if that's the issue. Since her food is not weighed, and there isn't a guide on your feeding charts for volume, it's impossible to know if she's getting enough of the right foods. Cats on whole prey diets tend to be very lean in captivity because it's impossible to mimic their variety in the wild. I saw that you have a lot of food choices for her, including rats, rabbits, chicks, chicken, and beef hearts, but it's really hard to calculate exactly the right mix, especially when there's no weight or volume guides to go by. We use balls, so golf ball, baseball, softball, etc., as volume guides, and we weigh the food of cats who are picky or aged. I'd like to plant a seed in your mind. I made that all bold, because I suspect it may take some time for it to grow. Bobbi and Panther, he was a Florida Panther and named Panther, both ended up here because they have medical needs that couldn't be met in your current situation. Panther's dental issue probably would not have occurred if he had gotten the antibiotics he needed after the first surgery. Bobbi probably just needed proper and regular deworming. I know you are doing the best with what you have, and I just love Maria to death, but if I understand you correctly, you have 3 custodians, which I assume means animal caregivers, and 80 animals. You are providing all of that care for $80,000? We have 56 animals and the equivalent of 47 full-time staff, counting our volunteer hours. We have to raise $3.3 million to provide that care, and we currently raise about $1 million more than is needed to ensure the lifetime care of these cats no matter what happens to the economy. Then I gave him a link to our annual report. Obviously, the cats are more expensive to maintain than most of your animals, but 15 years ago we calculated that just the food and routine vet costs, dewormers, flea meds, etc., not any vet time, for us and our ability to buy trailer loads of food at a time came out to cougars $7,500 a year and bobcats $1,700 a year. In 15 years, all of those prices have gone up, so I think it would be very conservative to estimate that your cougar and bobcat are costing you at least $10,000 a year just for food, dewormers, and deflea meds. We spend $2,800 on just flea meds each year for our 56 cats. Remarkably, $10,000 is exactly the amount of your shortfall between what it costs you for food and what the Hillsborough County Schools gives you. Panther is going to need a ground diet or chop diet for the rest of his life, and he needs 2 medications twice a day. One of the supplements has to be given an hour before he eats. It was hard to get antibiotics into him consistently. I don't know how this daily regimen is going to be possible. We feed him twice a day every day, so it would mean he couldn't be fasted on Sundays anymore, and ideally he'd have someone feeding him morning and night. They would have to be able to focus the timing of his supplement and meals with a precision that probably isn't possible given all of the other needs of the other animals. As a real estate investor since 1991, I watched the cyclical nature of the economy closely and believe that we will probably do okay through 2019, but I expect a huge turn for the worse in 2020. Was that prophetic or what? I think the stock market will crash and the housing market will tank because we've suppressed interest rates unnaturally for far too long. You have a hard time ahead of you, even in today's economy, but I think you have an impossible job ahead of you in the following year. Animals always suffer first during a downturn, and you don't have reserves to help you ride it out. At the time you may be looking to rehome your animals, sanctuaries will be struggling for all the same reasons. And then again, all in bold, I would propose that you leave Panther and Bobbi in our care until you have secured reliable funding that closes that $10,000 gap for you. We have the people and resources to give them optimal care at no cost to you. Since they would just be on loan to us in the interim, you could take them back at any time when it was financially feasible for you. It would free up money for you to put into things that could earn Nature's Classroom more money. Cats in cages aren't capable of creating a funding stream, but more or better camp offerings could. People desperately want to offload their kids for the whole summer because parents work, so making it affordable and nature-themed is a winning combination. We used to do camp and always had to turn people away. We just aren't kid-centric here, so we quit a few years back. Frankly, I think being on display where they can't hide from 17,000 grade schoolers a year is a fate worse than death for exotic cats, and I hope that we can help you come up with some ways of teaching children about nature that doesn't require having cats in cages. I think some animals are fine with that sort of life, but cats always hate it. I know the vultures scare the cats, and we have to be ever vigilant here to keep them away from our cats. Everywhere I looked today was just lined in vultures, and your current Panther cage can't be made vulture-proof without many tens of thousands of dollars of roofing. People who like seeing cats in cages will argue that people can't visit if you don't give them that. But more and more we are seeing people, especially children, who don't want to see wild animals held captive. Debate.org shows 67% of the public believes that zoos should be banned. I gave a link to that. I believe most, if not all, the animals at Nature's Classroom were rehab or exotic pet rejects and not bred for life in cages. That can be a justification for the situation, but it makes your work that much harder because the animals who come to you are already dealing with injuries, stressors, and complications that make their care even more costly and specialized than if they hadn't been traumatized before arrival. I'm sure most of the teachers I met with will try to dissuade you from doing what I think you already might be thinking is the best for the cats. Other than Maria, none of them seemed to know much about how they were. None of them seemed to know how much they were stressing Panther by trying to get their photos of him up close. I don't envy you there, dealing with so many people who have no understanding of animals or their needs. It is easy for them to believe the animal in a cage is necessary for them to use as a prop. It's a lot harder to be innovative. Regardless of your decision as to the fate of Bobbi and Panther, I really would like to see if we can come up with some better ways of educating people about nature. I think Nature's Classroom could do some groundbreaking work that would get you media attention and thus the funding you need. I look forward to learning more about your situation Wednesday, and I hope we can implement some cool new ways for children to learn about the necessity of protecting nature. Forgive me for being so blunt, and please know that I'm not being critical. And again, all in bold. You've done the best you could with what you have. It's just an impossible situation. Notes from this morning. Let me know if I got any of this wrong. 80 animals, $60,000 annual cost Nature Classroom has to raise. $30,000 is just for food. $20,000 is all Nature's Classroom gets from Hillsborough County Schools. Nature's Classroom needs to cut the food cost by $10,000. There are 17,000 kids annually. You're on 376 acres with about 150 of those in use. Hillsborough County Schools provides 7 full-time teachers and 3 part-time. 3 custodians do all of the animal care. 1 residential fridge, 4 residential freezers, and 1 commercial fridge. Spoiler alert, this was obviously posted later, like today when I went back to see. By May 28th of 2019, Keith was asking us to bring the cats back, which we did. I did continue to check in on them until January of 2021, but he never agreed to release them back to us and never took us up on our offer to create an augmented reality zoo for them for free. Later in the day, on another note, I just created 2 welcome series of 3 emails in Salsa. That's our customer relations management system. I could never do this with the old Salsa, so I was eager to try it out in the new version. Anytime we import a list, it drops them into the sequence of a welcome email the next day that thanks them and gives them an overview of what to expect from us. 31 days later, they get one that tells them where to get free downloads of the Big Cat Times. 62 days later, they get one sending them to our cat bio pages and arzoo.me. All of them lay out our 3-part mission and how to connect with us on their favorite social sites. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.